All right, we've had our daily crisis and it's over. And that's actually going to be part of the lecture, not this particular crisis, but our moment-to-moment crises and how mindfulness deals with those. All right, we have, well, two announcements. One, yes, there are still some people that are going to be put into the class, and it hasn't happened because one of the machines that controls numbers and so on can't compute 10% right. And in this case, I'm going to win because I'm right, because it isn't something that you can argue about within our, within the same laws of mathematics that created that machine. 10% is 10%. So anyway, we are going to have some more spaces. And oh, the other one is, remember one of the rules of meditation was not to bother your neighbors. And now we're going to meditate for like 5 minutes at the beginning of class. And so the class is what's known as post-meditation. So the rule is also not to bother your neighbors in post-meditation. And there have been some number of people who have complained to their GSI that their neighbors were playing solitaire, and it bothered them. So, anyway, you know, I know that about multitasking, and but don't bother your neighbors. And otherwise, one of those things with multiple arms and teeth, will might do something. So we're going to have a new answers to some questions at the beginning of each class. Usually, it will be after we do our 5 minutes of meditation. But I am so pleased. People have started asking questions about content now instead of just what you were asking about before. And so some of the questions are about meditation. So a wonderful question. Didn't the Buddhist story show that meditation is one of the 3 things that doesn't work? Right? And now, so, well, it's the particular type of meditation and that was prevalent at the time of getting absorbed in an ignorant way. And the name for that is jhana states. And there's quarreling not quarreling, calm, enlightened arguments to this day about how much stability you need in the peaceful abiding before your wisdom starts coming in, and whether or not, because the Buddha practiced these jhana states before he said, nah, you don't get there with these. So do you need to do that also? And of course, those states, they're very refined states that I won't even begin to describe, and they take lifetimes, or at least years, and they're really not. I've asked teachers from various countries, and they're really not practiced today, and they're certainly not in this country, I think. But how do you balance the stable, peaceful abiding and the seeing what's going on? And in the particular practice that we are now doing, chosen for its suitability to busy lives, there's a thing called momentary concentration, and that's what you need. And of course, there are those who say, what do you mean momentary concentration? And the obvious reply, some of you can probably think from what we've already learned, you've gotten a little bit of content. What's the answer to people who say, humbug, momentary concentration? Remember impermanence? What other kind of concentration could you have if you take impermanence seriously? Okay, so the difference is not momentary versus here I am. It's all they're talking about is what moment. Are you keeping the same object in mind moment after moment? And that's not that big a deal. So this whole thing is more accessible than we might think. Okay, next question. This is from people who've struggled with meditation for a while. Isn't it dangerous to attend to your ordinary mental junk? So in the second part of the practice, you're actually turning your attention to your senses or your thoughts. So isn't that going to kind of, well, the answer is it's how you're attending. You can attend. What this is trying to do is develop mindful attention as opposed to you're sucked into it, and your fantasy and your worry or your whatever it is just takes you away and closes down on you, and you're in this cage in this other world. And again, the point of it, this is meant for people with daily lives, is that how are you going to be mindful in daily life? There's all kinds of content. It's not just breath. Try and drive when you're only attending to your breath. That is not meant seriously. Don't try it. And the final question is, I either get uptight or I just kind of drift. So it's either, I'm really trying or I kind of. And yes, and the Buddha has a story for you. There's a story attributed to the Buddha. And for those of you with meditation practice, you've heard this 1,000 times. I'm sorry. A famous musician asked the Buddha, how should I meditate? And probably asked a question kind of like this. I'm either trying too hard or I'm being a slob. And the answer was, like Socrates, the Buddha tends to ask questions of questioners. Well, how do you tune your instrument? The stringed instrument, how do you tighten up the pegs? No, I don't. Or do you just loosen them so that there's no tension? No, I don't. So the answer is not too tight and not too loose. And you're the only one that knows how to tighten and loosen your own instrument. I will probably tend to emphasize the loosening because you guys tend to be, and you got into Berkeley, right? And you're sailing along, with a few exceptions, you're all juniors or seniors, and we do that by being tight. But when you're very tight, you also have periods of just collapsing and flopping. And you know all about that, so you work with your own mind. Okay, we're going to do our little piece of meditation after we have another question or comment.
So I did the procrastination exercise, but I found that I was practicing it, I did something that was maybe considered procrastination, so I stopped and I think to myself,
This is the fight procrastination, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So non-procrastination. So, and I found that it's hard to think sometimes, like, am I just making an effort to do this instead of that, or procrastinating? Because, essentially, anything can be deemed procrastination can everything at once, so it's a matter of choices of priorities. I guess it's a key, but.
Yeah, no, we try to do everything at once, but we can't. Not everything. All right, what that little exercise was for is that it's in order to allow mindfulness, that is being with your mind, just seeing what's going on in daily life. Sometimes in the heat of being about to do something that's your impulsive habit, if you pause for just a moment, then the world can say, hey, look what's going on. And you say, oh, yeah. And we're going to have, when we get to karma and how you affect karma, there's going to be a whole session on just that kind of thing. So that's another prequel to that. All right. So 5 minutes or so of doing our practice and settling down from questions and answers. So getting comfortably and non-compulsively upright. Probably closing your eyes. Attending to the breath. And when some other sense or thoughts come up, turning the attention to that, perhaps labeling it lightly with a little label. And as it starts to change or isn't go away or isn't itself anymore, just coming gently back to the breath, and so on. All right. Amazing how fast 5 minutes can go when you're having fun. So if you're going to do this at home, it's recommended you do it for a little more than 5 minutes. According to my watch, well, in the vicinity thereof. All right, so today we are going to talk about the foundations of mindfulness, which will hopefully start to make mindfulness clearer. You have 2 readings about this. The Thera reading, which represents early Buddhism, and the Trungpa reading for later Buddhism. And yes, if those of you who have discovered these readings are probably saying, I need some help with these, so here it is. I gave you these 2 in order for you to see something of the 2 poles of how this can be approached and how they're actually working in the same kind of ballpark, even though they may look different. So both of them name the first foundation of mindfulness, body. And it means body, this thing. You've all seen that, the classic representation of a body. The body is the seat of whatever you're doing.